Today, we are picking a stock in the Indian agriculture space. On Thursday, late night last week, they announced a merger with another company in the same industry, immediately unlocking a pan-India presence. A major capex got completed, giving them backward integration, gains from which will be felt in the first quarter of 2024. पर गवर्नमेंट जो इस पूरी इंडस्ट्री की सबसे बड़ी स्टेकहोल्डर है, जो स्पेस को ओन एंड सब्सिडाइज करती है, अनाउंस लास्ट मंथ कि देयर विल बी अ कैप ऑन प्रॉफिट मार्जिन्स. पर ये एक ऐसा स्टॉक है जिसके ओनर्स ओन मोर देन 30% ऑफ द मार्केट थ्रू सेवरल कंपनीज एंड वर्ल्ड के सबसे बड़े एक स्पेसिफिक रॉ मटेरियल प्रोवाइडर्स के साथ एक जॉइंट वेंचर करके बैठे हैं. कैन वी रीप मनी आउट ऑफ दिस स्टॉक? चलिए जानते हैं. तो शुरू करते हैं एक अनबायस्ड कवरेज जस्ट बेस्ड ऑन फैक्ट्स ऑन द सेकंड लार्जेस्ट नॉन यूरिया फर्टिलाइजर कंपनी Paradeep Phosphates Limited. My name is Ashish Thomas. I am a graduate and a management consultant. My daily job is to evaluate firms, understand their risk, anticipate market moves, and I thought why not apply all of this to the stock market. So here we are, and let's jump right in. As with the previous videos, we begin with our industry analysis. We'll then move on to the business model. We'll then take a peek at the hood under the financials. फिर इस कंपनी के रिस्क देखेंगे and finally the valuations. With that preamble, let's get in to understand the winds of change in the industry. India is the second largest fertilizer consumer in the world right after China. The Indian government sets a price cap for all types of fertilizers and subsidizes the fertilizer producer the difference between the production cost and the actual sales value. Government has actually subsidized 80 to 90% of the actual fertilizer cost. As per the IMARC projections, Indian fertilizer market is projected to be worth $1.2 trillion by 2028, rising from $900 billion today in 2023 at a 4.9% CAGR. इस ग्रोथ के भी दो तीन बेसिक रीजंस हैं. There's a limited use of land for farming and there's a constant need to increase the productivity from it. काफी government schemes हैं like प्रधानमंत्री कृषि संचय योजना to increase the fertilizer usage and agriculture productivity. Integration of innovative technologies like precision farming, smart fertilization methods and biofertilizers are also enhancing the efficiency and it boosts growth. Finally, काफी environmental awareness आई है market में, so there's a demand for organic and eco-friendly fertilizers in the market. In fact, government में last year One Nation One Fertilizer scheme launch किया था जिससे they standardize all fertilizer brands across the country regardless who is manufacturing it under the brand name of Bharat. This was meant to increase transparency and affordability of fertilizers among the farmers by terminating the entire black marketing around the fertilizer. If you look at the entire industry, we have to import a lot of the fertilizer raw materials and fertilizer raw material prices skyrocketed last year when EU added sanctions against Belarus on the exports. Now Belarus is the fourth largest producer of potash, so global market prices तो increase हुए. For India, fortunately, Russian sanctions, जो US Russian sanctions हो रहे थे, Russia sold us a lot of discounted raw materials, so उससे questioning हो गया against the rising prices. However, in September 2023, Russia resumed trade with US, तो हमारे वो discounts सारे बंद हो गए. Now, if you look at the companies which are there in the market, there's EID Perry, which owns Coromandel International, which is India's second largest fertilizer producer and the largest private player. The biggest in this space is actually the government itself, as it owns IFFCO, which is India's largest fertilizer provider, the NFL, FACT, and other brands. Our dark horse today, however, is the Birla Group, who owns 30 to 40% of the market through several companies like Zuari Agro, Mangalore Chemicals, Chambal Fertilizer. In fact, Chambal is the second largest private producer after Coromandel, and of course, our PPL or the Paradeep Phosphates. The group has also been buying minority stakes in regional firms and driving strategic alliances like with OCP, which owns 70% of the world's global phosphate rock, a super important fertilizer or the raw material for the fertilizers. So the industry has all the right connections and conditions for a firm like Paradeep to thrive in the market. With that, let's look at what does Paradeep actually do. So some of the highlights of the firm, what is the competitive edge, and finally, what is the news that it is going to get impacted. Paradeep has nearly 40 years of experience in manufacturing high margin and high performance non-urea fertilizers. In fact, it is the second largest non-urea firm in India. With the announced merger last week with Mangalore Chemicals, they have a combined capacity of 3.6 million metric tons, which makes it right on the top two in terms of the production capacity for private players. They also have a strong grassroots partnership with farmers and distributors to move the product. Now, in the fertilizer market, there are few things that give Paradeep a competitive edge. It is highly cost competitive because it has backward integrations with almost all the raw materials in the house. Through OCP Group, which is actually its promoters, it gets uninterrupted supply of phosphates. By being in the Birla Group, it gets benefit of scale, a strong marketing and a distribution network, resulting in better cost efficiencies. They have plans to enter the nano fertilizer market, a space that Nirmala Sitharam clearly called out as one of the focus areas for the government in this fiscal budget. And finally, they have only utilized 33% of land for production. Thereby, they have options to significantly increase capacity in a planned manner as per the future demand. And finally, there are two big news in the market which are impacting Paradeep right now. On January 30 of 2024, the government published that there are new guidelines to cap the maximum profit margins that will allow fertilizer companies only 8% profit from an importer perspective, 10% for manufacturers, and 12% for integrated manufacturers. So for Paradeep, it will be the 12% that will get taxed. This will be effective retrospectively from April 1, 2023, and all the additional profits will be adjusted to subsidy. It is not likely to impact Paradeep yet, as their profit margins have been under 10% for a while, given all the capex that they are doing. On 8th Feb last week, 2024, Mangalore Chemicals was merged with Paradeep to allow it to come near Coromandel in terms of the capacity. It unlocks the entire southern market for Paradeep, which was only traditionally present only in north, west, and east. It also adds 4,000 new dealership in the existing wide Paradeep network for distribution. I think with that, let's look at some of the news that the financials under the hood, which is getting impacted with all the news that has come in. Numbers don't lie. But before we go there, आपने काफी सारे stock videos देखे होंगे, but a very few are going into the depth like we are doing today. So please go like the video अगर you haven't already, and do subscribe. वहाँ bell icon पर all notification कीजिएगा, so that you're up to date, because I'll be launching a new company analysis every 3 days. We have over 2,000 stocks in only 365 days. तो content तो काफी आने वाला है. Some typing and a quick search later. Now, Paradeep Phosphates grew at 47% CAGR between 2020 and 2023, resulting in a revenue of 133 billion. In fact, they grew at a high growth rate of 69% to 70% last year, and this was primarily due to the capacity being doubled with the acquisition of Gujarat plant from Zuari Argo, its parent house. EBITDA improved by 27% despite the rise in the raw material costs, and the rise can be attributed to the increased sales which happened and also due to the production efficiencies that we have talked about. On the operational front, operating cash is net negative, and the decrease can majorly be explained by the high finance cost that was incurred in the acquisition of the Zuari plant. उन्होंने काफी significant capex expenditure किए हैं to secure their supply chain and create backward integration, and they've developed a phosphoric acid plant capacity to enhancement of 0.5 million tons, as well as installed a fourth evaporator. So there's a lot of capex, efficiencies of which will be started to feel from this year onwards. The ratios right now are moderate to poor. However, the entire industry has very similar comparables. Having said that, the new acquisition and the backward integration gains are going to significantly improve the ratios this year. When you look at the equity research analysts, they have predicted the share price to go up by 30 to 35% this year. And with the EBITDA improvement due to the strategic investment, the softening of the raw material prices, and the cost increase that is expected to happen, they are very bullish about this stock this year. I have blanked out all the other projections due to the merger which has just happened, so it doesn't make sense to do that without the merger being accounted for. But the preliminary indications, at least from the last year's and this year's equity research analysts, have been very positive for all the metrics which we typically track. And final note on the shareholder, the holding pattern is stable. There was no insider buying or selling of additional shares in the market, which usually indicates, selling usually indicates that there is that risk which is going to come through. But what is interesting is a lot of large institutions like SBI Fund, Goldman Sachs Asset Management Fund, HDFC Asset Management are picking up the stock. Now, this part of the portfolio which is picking up is the low turnover portfolio. इसका मतलब है ये लंबे टाइम तक ये स्टॉक में रहेंगे and रहने का प्लान कर रहे हैं. With every great investment comes some noteworthy risk. So does with Paradeep. Now, there is a risk of erratic monsoon, because if rainfall reduces, the land which is being used, the fertilizer on that land which is going to be used will get impacted. Although government proactively reimburses करता है with timely subsidy payments, and it's been there since last 2 years, any significant delay in the payment will stretch the working capital for the firm. काफी volatility रहती है with the raw material prices, with phosphoric acid, sulfuric acid, rock phosphate coming from all over the globe. So there is some cushioning that Paradeep has through internal sourcing, but a large war scenario can impact the input cost and reduce EBITDA. And finally, the regulatory risk. This is a regulated industry. Government ने अभी price cap लगाया, nano DAP fertilizers का उपयोग करने को बोला है. So the firm may not have enough time to plan and respond to these changing regulatory requirements or any kind of announcements from the government. Finally, the most awaited section, or at least important what I think, is the valuation. Now, in terms of the valuation, if you look at the football field that you've seen in the previous videos, अगर आप equity research targets देखें तो this low is 110 and going as high as 130. The median stands around 120, which is almost a 48% upside that they are claiming. When I ran the relative valuations and looked for trading comparables, I used Chambal, Coromandel, Deepak Fertilizers, Gujarat State Fertilizer, Indian Potash, Indo Gulf Fertilizer, and a couple others. There's a lot of option in the market. So the relative valuation say the stock price is coming to be between 130 and 140. I'll also add the stock is trading at a PE of 16.5, which is in line with the market. Based on the FY25 earnings, it's trading at a PE of only 11.1, which is at a discount. In terms of its intrinsic valuations or DCF, which is only this financial taking it, that comes out to be between 370 and 420, with a discounted cost of capital or WACC to be taken around 10.8 and long-term growth of 6.5%. So the stock is undervalued at the moment with all the different valuation metrics, so it could be a good buy opportunity in the market. So final thoughts. अगर आप लोगों को अच्छा लग रहा हो वीडियो तो जरूर लाइक करना, and then you can tell me what the next share that you want me to look into, and do not forget to click on the bell icon to get all the notifications. What do we like? The goods, the capacity increase with the merger, the backward integration, the key strategic alliance with the OCP group, the softening of the international raw material prices are all in the favor of Paradeep. And of course, the stock is undervalued, so a good point to start in the market. The bads, the return is very average at the moment. Government ने price caps लगाए हैं तो on the fertilizer product, the product margins पे cap है, so there is some bit of negativity which is there. I think, but in my opinion, that there is some goods to Paradeep over the bad. I would only recommend entering the market after the current market correction is complete, and only if you have a slightly risky appetite and stay longer in the market. With that, I think that's all my time for today. I hope you have gotten some good starting point as you think about Paradeep Phosphate as a share. Do like the video and please drop in a comment if you like something or anything that I should change. You would have noticed काफी changes हुए हैं धीरे-धीरे छोटे-छोटे changes across the videos. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and finally please share it with all the like-minded investors. Do note that I'm not SEBI registered yet, and these are my independent view and analysis. Please do your own research and tell me how you feel about Paradeep Phosphates. Thank you.